Chase throwing on the run, and it is caught. Touchdown, Keenan Allen. What a grab.
That's what I'm talking about. Hey, that's what I'm talking about. That's the warrior spirit right there, boy.
Huge sack by Joey Bosa.
90-yard touchdown. 90-yard touchdown.
That's going to be picked off at the 8-yard line by Derwin James.
Herbert sets his feet, takes a shot downfield, has Guyton. Caught. Touchdown, Chargers!
That's the greatest throw I've ever seen.
What is happening, Bolt fam? Welcome to another edition of the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. I am Andy Prophet. My co-host is Alistair Lloyd. Good day to you, sir. It's Dadgummit Victory Pod time! And we are elated to be joined by our great mate from across the pond and profound writer at Bolts from the Blue, Kyle D. What's happening, man?
Oh, doing good, Andy. Finally got a win in the column. That's for those keeping track at home, our fourth win against a backup quarterback. But hey, we'll digress and we'll get into that as we go.
Really just cut the rungs out of the ladder straight off. Just
killing my flow already.
Attitude and energy is just shot in the foot. Well, guys, it's a sharp turnaround. It's a sharp turnaround for us this week. Schedules get a bit chaotic heading into the holiday season, so we're shooting from the hip tonight. We're having a beer. And we are enjoying what we can from the result, above all else, before, of course, we host the Broncos in Week 14. Let's get straight into it. Los Angeles Chargers 6, New England Patriots 0. Not a bad scoreline if you're playing hockey or soccer, or heck, even a set of tennis. Sure, interesting viewing, but a win's a win when your back's against the wall and the season's half down the toilet. Only evidence I really saw of a bizarre Coriolis effect was Khalil Mack spinning and weaving his path of destruction and leading the defensive unit to maybe one of its better performances of the season, keeping the Bailey Zappi-led Pats to a big fat goose egg, becoming just the fifth unit to do so against Bill Belichick in his New England tenure. The monkeys off the back, 15 years since the Bolts knocked them off, and we did it in Foxborough. Much needed snapping of the losing streak. 5-7 now, and on to Denver. As you're channeling Jack, Al, what have you got for us this week?
This week, listeners, in place of Jack, we're going deep. We're going back to 1999. Picture Jack as a 10-year-old boy watching MTV, jerking the little gherkin. On comes TLC. The famous song, I don't want no scrub. A scrub is a guy that get no love from me. That famous trio, Tion Watkins, Lisa Left Eye Lopez, rest in peace, and Rosonda Chili Thomas. Well, you know what? Scrubs get love from me. My three scrubs, of course, are Esang Bassi, Dean Leonard, Justin Hollins. Who are these guys? No one knows them, but they're producing hit single after hit after hit. And as you said, Andy, the Chargers are just one of 5 teams to hold the most famous coach in the history of the league to 0 points for an entire game. Let's just overlook Kyle's point that it's a backup quarterback who probably shouldn't be getting games. But you know what? I'll take it. The first win against this much hated AFC rival for 15 years. And I want to see more of these scrubs because they're doing a really good job so far, aren't they, Kyle?
Yeah, they are. I mean, Bossy, like you said, has been doing great. Hollins, I think we kind of anticipated would do a yeoman's job. Maybe not necessarily as efficient as Kyle Van Noy last year, but he's somebody that has played in the scheme, has done well under Staley, and that we figured he'd be personally a little bit of an upgrade over what we have from Rumpf, even though he was somebody signed to replace Rumpf when Rumpf was injured. It's kind of one of those classic examples of a guy that could have been an upgrade from day one if we weren't so stubborn about developing guys in their third or fourth year that have already shown us everything we need to know about them. I think, Andy, how do you feel about the scrub?
I think you're forgetting to mention Jalen Hawkins as well, who has been, somewhat serviceable. They're all part of a unit that's in the last 2 and a bit weeks playing better football. So I'm about it.
4 members in the band.
Yeah. It's the other, I won't say anything about a lazy eye there. Rest in peace. Walked down a dark path there. And look, like I said to you when we were watching the game, man, they're getting the result. Like we're playing better football. You could see it out on the field. There's better communication between guys, and maybe it doesn't matter. You don't need to pay huge bucks, and maybe this scheme is not as hard as it was. That you've just got kind of vets set in their way a bit, and we're seeing improvement from Dean Leonard, and he got targeted a bunch, and he responded pretty well at times, and has done so. And he's playing a heap on special teams as well. Like these guys are guys who want to play for this team, and they're getting pumped. Justin Hollins, it's good little compliment to other guys that are starting to play better football as well. The main core group. So I think it's all coming together nicely. That's how I see it.
I also figure how you feel about this game as a fan. It says a lot about what your perspective is like and who you are as a person, your psychology. Because you could look at it in many different ways, right? There's a pessimistic way to look at this and realize it's still highly unlikely that the Chargers go on a playoff run. So if you're the type who's wanting the team to lose to secure a higher pick, kudos to you. That's fine. If you're the type who's maybe a bit more bullish or optimistic and thinks, this is a team that's lost a lot of close games, ergo they have potential. So if the defense improves, maybe they can win out. If that's kind of your way of looking at things, then you can view the positives from this game as well. And I'm sure we're going to unpack the offensive kind of ineptitude, but in this game, there's at least special teams leading from the front. The defense putting on a bit of a show, playing in a way that's much more attractive to the eye. I thought I saw a lot of kind of more single high safety, more men in the box, tighter coverage. Again, we're seeing good connection between rush and coverage, all those good things. I think, Andy, your point on communication was massive. I don't know if this is Essang Bassi or Gilman being around for longer, but you were even noticing as players come in motion across the formation, there's just a lot more calm and confidence and directional voice, as opposed to what we saw with Michael Davis quite a bit, I have to say, really unsure before the snap, kind of pointing and not knowing who the coverage responsibility belongs to. And I don't know, again, you can look at it two ways. Should they have made these changes earlier in the season, Kyle? Or do you think it's kind of just part of coaching that you try different combinations until you find one that works? And it's actually good that finally we've arrived at a group who knows how to execute the defense, albeit in, the first week of December.
I don't know if bringing Bassi up so quick would have been the answer. Getting off of Michael Davis would have been kind of tough because we have seen him play at a very high level for this team. I would have liked to see the Derwin move earlier, like we've talked about on this podcast. Even though he did still have some slip ups, it wasn't his best game still, I would say. But I love Alohi in that backfield, kind of taking control. I think that's what both of you are alluding to, is like you're seeing Alohi now really start to come alive as a leader on this defense. It started last year with the Dolphins when he did his film study and knew where Tyreek was going to be and broke up that first pass. And ever since then, there has been a cerebral component to his game. And it didn't initially translate into leadership right away, but now you're seeing it. Even that first play this season, or maybe in the second play against the Dolphins, where Khalil Mack was lined up on Tyreek. And they both realized they were totally mismatched and their coverage was not going to work against that play. He and Alohi had a moment where they pointed at each other, kind of communicated, and they worked to mitigate what was going to be a terrible play and was a bad play, but they worked on making it a little less bad. So he's very, very aware, and you're seeing him step up as a leader now. So can we bring him back? Do we bring him back? And how quickly do you think we could start seeing Alohi Gilman with a C on his chest if we do, Andy?
Look at Carl, the former Notre Dame, his wife, former Notre Dame alum. He's got the Golden Dome beaming over there. You're practically a fighting Irish, aren't you, Carl?
I mean, boys, I have an agenda here. Okay, I got to keep the wife happy. Got to keep the wife happy. That's another. That's another $1 million in AAV right there.
That's my problem, Andy.
Yeah, I know. I'm witness to it. I love it because he's not the most physically gifted guy, but you can see the growth, as you said, that cerebral aspect to his football. The growth in his football IQ is allowing him to play smarter and achieve more than I feel his physical limitations would otherwise allow him to. And I think that's the growth that you've sort of seen in his career. And now, I'm not going to say it's the student becomes the master, but the student becomes the teacher, and he's able to then help the younger guys in the unit communicate that and be like, hey, Michael Davis is by far the most experienced cornerback we have, but he's pushing shit uphill. We've got Alohi who can then go, hey, look, I'll help you out. Come over here. We'll sort this out. Listen to me here and that sort of stuff. And you're seeing that, and you're seeing maybe it's a lack of, or it's just a massive decrease in the egos of the guys playing out there. They're more likely to sort of take the help, the advice, and grow, more organically than sort of trying to push against any help that they're getting. But it's great to see, and it's one of those ones where I'd really like to have him back, because I was so concerned when he was injured and wasn't able to, and we were seeing that Derwin was lost doing his coverage thing and stuff, and actually as that deep safety isn't the best option for our team. I was concerned about the communication, which we saw break down a lot, and it's now allowed Derwin to play closer to the line of scrimmage. And sure, he didn't have a great game in coverage, but look, he got a sack and he looked dangerous around the line. And like I said, I mean, Kyle, you pointed it out. We will say it. We played against a backup quarterback in a 2-9 team, but you got to get the result, don't you? And he had a part to play for sure.
Let's overlook though that near interception. That it would have really been nice if Gilman secured that to seal the game right at the very end. Again, it's how you want to watch the game, right? In some ways, Gilman has become one of the best safeties in the entire NFL. I don't think it's unreasonable to
got
say
him like 8th or something, don't they? 7th, yeah.
They've got him high for sure, and probably to your point, Andy, it might be difficult to find the funds in a cash-strapped off-season to secure his services, but he's going to earn every dollar because of the way he's playing. Kyle I can see him feverishly looking for a way to keep him, but maybe... Okay, jump in. How are we keeping him?
Sorry, this is a non-spreadsheet show tonight, Carl.
Well, you just
purely audio.
You have me diving into some research now just to double check.
Excel book 7.
Initially, and there it is. This is exactly what I think I needed, although it wasn't the high snap count that we would have liked to see. But when Adrian Phillips left for New England, his last season with us, he had a PFF score of 87.6. He had a very good year. He wasn't a full-time starter. He was a sub-package kind of guy. But Phillips is who he reminds me of the most, because he's a cerebral guy that gets to the ball. You might be tempted to slot him in as more of a sub-package type of player because he doesn't have the athletic traits, but he's proving that he can overcome that. I still think teams want, when free agency hits, I still think they want that speed, and they're going to have a hard time opening up their pocketbooks for a guy that's only had one full year as a starter and has thrived as the, let's just say, the cow pie that possibly just smells the least. If this defense was high performing and he was doing great and it seemed like it was because of him, it might be one thing. So we might be looking at a situation where he does take kind of a 1 or 2, probably a 2-year deal to prove that this isn't a fluke, that he can be a, quality starting safety. But I don't know. I haven't dove into the market just yet, but from the beginning of this season, that's the comparable for Gilman was always Adrian Phillips for me. And he left for the Patriots for pennies.
Yeah.
Well, maybe while we have you on kind of cap alert, I did have a question, Carl. If did you say anything from the game yesterday? Did anything happen yesterday that kind of impacts your view of appropriate end of season moves or kind of cap consequences? I know bringing up Khalil Mack, who's now 15 sacks on the year. He's, tied for the most ever in his career with 5 games left in the season, playing at an incredible level. Does that kind of view your perspective of, how we approach the offseason? Anything you saw yesterday?
So I don't know if you guys have seen this on Twitter, but I've thrown up a couple contract scenarios of us actually extending Keenan Allen and Khalil Mack. And if we were to do that, if you use very favorable comparisons, in my opinion, for them, which would be, at the time, it was Devontae Adams for Keenan Allen and Von Miller for Mack. You can give them a slight bump on those AAVs or APYs and get us in a situation where we're saving about $15 million per player in the cap next year and being able to afford them for the next two, and potentially then having a ripcord year after that where they get enough dead cap afterwards to make it worth it to sign with us in those first 2 years, or we come to a situation where we have to renegotiate the contract and figure out something else to do. But they're performing at a high enough level where we can have that conversation. The real question with Mac right now, in my mind, is
I know where you're going.
Himself?
Yeah.
Did you see it already?
No, I just know what you're like. You just think of compensatory draft picks in every waking moment. So.
Trade value.
Well, it's not necessarily trade value, guys, because I already got to that place where I wanted to keep him because, especially if we were to go with a new coaching hire that puts us in a position where we don't necessarily have to rebuild. I think if a Harbaugh, and we'll get into this more later, but if we got a Jim Harbaugh, I think he could come in immediately and build around the leadership of Keenan Allen on offense, Khalil Mack on defense. And, his first season with the 49ers, they went 13-3. If we go back to our first year coach scenario, like we always do, seemingly, then maybe it doesn't make as much sense because it might take 2 years to get things back on track. But Khalil Mack has played himself to a point where, and I posted this earlier, he's played himself to a point where he's gotten, like you guys said, 16 sacks. He's on pace for many more. He's on pace to get, sorry, let me look this up because I posted this. He's on pace for 1.33 sacks a game. But if you were to back that out between his sacks against starters and against backups, against starters, he's gotten 6 sacks in 8 games. So that's 0.75 sacks a game. Against backups, 4 games, he's had 10 sacks, 2.5 sacks a game. So I'm not saying that he doesn't have it anymore. I'm just starting to wonder, is there a potential, especially with us playing Aiden O'Connell again, that he does rack up this sack total and maybe should have a valuation of a player that got between 0.75, one sack a game, but he ends the season with 22, 23, maybe even 24 if he goes nuts again and wants to get paid like the best defensive player in the league.
And of course, Kyle, if I'm Max Agent, I'm saying the quarterback's irrelevant. It's about the offensive tackle he's facing. Mm-hmm. And not only that, it's about Joey Bosa's not there next to him giving him help. He's still accumulating these totals without a star edge rusher opposite him. What are you talking about? Pay my client.
100%. And he has $23 million in cash coming to him next year. So there's not really, there's not a reason for him to take something that's, going to be, the Chargers are going to be in a position where they likely need to make a decision, whether they trade, they're not going to cut him, whether they're going to trade him or whether they're going to extend him, free up cap. Letting him play on that contract would be a little bit of a problem for them. They can get around it. It's just not advantageous. So do you pay top dollar if he continues on this pace? After looking into the data a little bit and seeing, well, a lot of that production, elevated production, came from these backup quarterbacks. Or can you try to bring him down and be into that Von Miller place where we're at $20 to $23 million a year, where we can make something happen? That's going to be my question. Because if he's wanting to break the bank and get closer to a Nick Bosa, APY, then we are going to have to look at, okay, well, maybe we do need to trade this guy.
Yeah, I think there'd be a little bit, I see your point, I really do. I think there would be a little bit more strength in the argument for paying him that kind of market value if he wasn't 31 going on 32. So I do think that, that's a 5 five odd year difference between him and Nick Bosa. I think.
Oh, yeah.
Joey's 28, Nick's 25 or 26. So that does weigh against, and maybe, in-house the Chargers will say, hey, look, but that's classic Chargers, isn't it? Just lowballing everyone.
Well, and the
right.
difference between the two is significant, Andy. So even if we don't get all the way there, so Nick Bosa's at $34 million a year, where I was originally projecting around that Von Miller mark. I gave him an uptick from Von Miller to about 23 million a year. So I'm $11 million a year off from Nick Bosa. So that's where our negotiating positioning might be. I totally agree. He's not going to get the 34 million a year, but he might get something steamy, closer to that $30 million mark, where we're looking at it going, I don't know, man. Joey Bosa right now has an APY of 27.
Yeah. So. Yeah, it's hard to swallow, isn't it? Just those finances.
Hey, you're also forgetting, Cole, Mac's going to want his boy Staley coaching. So if that's going to be a precondition to keeping him, I'm sure a large population of the Chargers fan base aren't going to be amenable to that. So might need to wave him goodbye to follow his favourite coach.
He did very frustratingly say to a reporter last week, Alistair, that at this point in his career, all he wants to do is win.
Yeah.
And he did not look very happy when he said it. So.
He's doing all he can to try and get those wins, and it started with one this week. Why don't we... Yeah, you go, Andy. What are you going to say?
Oh, I was just going to... Yeah, well, it's been a rough trot from him. He went from the Raiders to the Bears, now to us. And it's just sort of been like trip over every step he sort of takes. Yeah, I'd be getting pretty pissed off if I were him too. But, yeah, look. If there is a change in the coaching... you'd hate for that to cause one of our best defensive players to then turn into that, like, trade me. I'm not playing for you, trade me. And you just feel all the wind taken out, and it's far more than just sort of a tumble dry on the defensive line for Jim Harbaugh or whoever else to get this defense to kind of click into a functional operation. So
money talks at the end of the day, so I'm sure you could work something out.
That's true. Jim will sign him up to a Ponzi scheme or something. Get rich quick. Suck him in. Let's get on to this defense, because it was awesome. Like, we shut them out, 0 points. We allowed 0 red zone trips, 5 sacks for 32 yards. Just came at awesome times. They came at the kind of times in the game I felt, and when I look back on it, that opposing defenses sack us and cause us to lose the game. And look, 6-0, it was any moment where one of those catches to Tyquan Thornton or Devontae Parker gets on the end of one of those, and all you need is a touchdown to tie the game and an extra point to take the lead. So it was as great a distance as the two teams sort of felt, for the most part, predominantly defense and special teams, as you said, Al. It was unnecessarily stressful, just in true Chargers fashion. The defense was just really good to see, and with the scrubs, I just felt good. I felt good about it. I felt like it was good for Staley, and it got us the win. It won us the game. So, is there any other massive shout out you need to give, Al, on the defense? Someone who balled out?
It's always nice to recognise Tooley, who continues his kind of rookie production.
Not who I thought you'd go with. Okay.
Yeah, well, like, he's playing at an above-average level for a starting edge, especially in run defense. And you never barrack for injuries, right? But early in that game, Ramondre Stevenson was having his way with the Chargers' interior, especially SJD and Austin Johnson. And all of a sudden, Tooley not only kind of forces the fumble, but in so doing manages to injure his ankle. Like, that one play is significant in the outcome of the game. I need to acknowledge that defensive performance looks potentially quite different with Ezekiel Elliott and, Ty Montgomery as the starting backs than if Ramondre is healthy for that entire game. He's one of their only good players on offense, seriously. And clearly the game plan was to run the ball. They have 29 rush attempts, notwithstanding Ramondre's out of the lineup, and with quite a bit of success too at 149 yards. So the Chargers didn't, they stopped aspects of the run defense, still those perimeter runs every now and then. We saw with the Tyquan Thornton 39-yard jet sweep where you see multiple missed tackles from secondary players, an enduring theme under the Brandon Staley kind of coaching tenure. But I thought it was good to see Kendricks and Murray back again. I mean, they had a really strong October. November, both of them struggled. And I don't know, Kyle, if you agree, but I feel like this is the type of game that suits them well. Run defenders. So when you know that the team wants to run the ball and you can come up and diagnose and kind of thump, I like them in that role more than against a spread offense when they're, out in space trying to cover the field. That's how I feel anyway.
Yeah, Al, you and I, and we talked about this, I think, last time I was on the pod. Is this run defense above average now? Can we say that? Have they done enough to quantify that? My pushback is that they haven't really had a statement game, that they haven't had a strong enough running team to really challenge them and give us a game to hang their hat on. Although that this game still doesn't push that needle for me, it doesn't quite get there. I am really stoked. I've been a Charger fan long enough to have seen enough weather games to know that these guys can wilt like a daisy in the cold. And this team didn't do that. So we've got to acknowledge that. There have been past Charger teams where in those kind of conditions, it didn't matter if it was Zeke or whoever was running the ball. They would have gotten pushed back by the offensive line and there would have been holes everywhere. We were very resilient in that regard, and the guys certainly did play with heart. So that's great to see. It's clear that the team hasn't given up on Staley.
And last week, Kyle, I thought bottling Lamar Jackson and that Ravens offensive line. I know Keaton Mitchell, it's still outside runs where there are issues. Perimeter runs, the team struggles. But I feel like at least they can claim their average. I'd say they're somewhere between 11th and 16th. Maybe right in between, average to slightly above average based on yards per attempt. And the fact that teams can't run the ball with impunity against them, especially up the middle. They try to run and we're keeping those runs to 1 or 2 yards or 3. So I feel like we're having more third and longs than we have at any other time during the Staley tenure.
I mean, or we're just a couple gals that, are used to guys making them pick up the checks. And for once, a guy's willing to go Dutch with us. So we think he's Prince Charming. We
need a translator, Andy.
Yeah, go Dutch. That's new. All I think of go Dutch is just lighting one up.
No, go Dutch is when the woman and the man pay separately for each other.
Oh, the old split the bill.
Yeah, they don't split the bill. It's not a above average performance, but because we've been mooched off of for so long, all of a sudden this looks like a great guy because he's willing to do his part. Basically, what I'm getting at is we could
looks
just have
better
been
than it
stuck
is.
with such a crappy defense for so long that now that it just feels like it's returning to average, that we have a tendency to celebrate it a little bit too much. And, I'm just not there yet, but we'll see. We'll see.
I agree with you. I think the bottom line of this is of this episode of the show, ultimately, is enjoy the win, but let's not get fucking carried away, right? Still only scored 6 points against the Patriots, and there were the good things, and then the offense just looked inept. You talk about opposition running games. We talk about it a lot, but can we just touch on it briefly? 29 yards from 24 attempts, 44 or 41 yards after contact. So you're just looking at how quickly the offensive line is getting beaten at the point and the tackles being made in the backfield. And credit, a few yards afterwards, but a long of 7. And it just really, in that kind of game.
A long of 7 is brutal. Yeah.
Oh, and it was Kelly, and then he beat his chest like King Kong, wanting more ball. Yeah, come on, give me the ball. It's like, mate, pack it in. We're going to have to make our superstar quarterback throw the ball in the shocking weather, and it's just the absolute opposite of what you should be able to generate against a pretty average team. They're parts of the Patriots defense that are handy. There are others that aren't, and are clearly, injury deficit. Matt Judon's out, stuff like that. So it's like this is sort of why you get pegged back heaps. If the defense wasn't perfect, then like you've really got to sort of temper your enjoyment and expectations when it's completely opposite to what I've just said, how we'll treat the show. But we can't just sit here and go, yeah, it was fun. Who cares? We scored 2 field goals and the middle 8 was okay. And it's cool, man. Al, do you think the weather was the big cause of the offensive philosophy? And is it just like an odd coincidence that it's the same sort of philosophy that we've taken into most games with the sort of run heavy on firsts and pack it in and just rely on Herbert to put the jetpacks on?
I think what we saw was impacted by the weather across the board, from the way they schemed their plays to the execution to the fact that there were 6 drops. I think that weather and rain played its part in a number of those drops. I also kind of thought you have to be sensible in a game where you view the opposition and how they're moving the ball, knowing it's a bit more of a time of possession type of game, and that if you can run for first downs, you're going to be well positioned to win the game. Unfortunately, they did miss a number of critical opportunities to kind of get the margin to 2 scores that really would have made all of us watching at home feel comfortable. I mean, the Quentin Johnston drop was a big one, but so was Donald Parham's. Actually, 2 of Donald Parham's, really. Yeah. He had a couple of those. I thought the second one was worse. I mean, the first one was a nice throw, but difficult. The second was it seemed like a concentration drop. But what I will say for the offense is in that kind of game, there were no turnovers. So that is slightly lucky, I thought, because, a couple of those near interceptions could have become interceptions where, the ball.
Oh, JC Jackson almost got one.
He almost had one early.
That
would have sucked for sure. But let's focus on a positive for the offense. Pass protection was elite.
Yeah, 0 sacks.
Absolutely elite. He's only pressured on 18.4% of dropbacks. That's the best of the year. No pressures allowed by Pipkins. Most of the pressures were actually Herbert's own fault, where PFF have deemed that he contributed to it being a pressure. And that is, I know you like your point that they're missing Matt Judon, but that's not a poor group of rushers. When you're thinking about Bill Belichick, their propensity to blitz, that they can use Duggar and the safeties, that you have this kind of rolling group of edge rushers who each can rush the passer. I was surprised. I thought the defense I thought we were going to struggle to protect Herbert in this game. And his average time to throw was 2.89 seconds. So the fact that we weren't able to move the ball effectively, I thought was not on the O-line. So I want to give them a bit of credit before we kind of flip to a number of the negatives, Carl. What we're like, come on, let loose. You're too nice a guy. You're always smiling and kind of, being the generous, giggly type. Let rip. What did this offense struggle with?
What I really would have liked to have seen that is such a self-serving take, because I was really hyped on the guy and I wish we had a chance to see him replicate some of his early success with the team last year. But they had him on for 2 weeks? Why would we not elevate Horvath for this game? We don't have that many running backs. It's a cold weather game. It's going to be just a slugfest. I would have liked to see Horvath get a chance to showcase that he can be a bruiser back personally. We literally have nowhere lower to fall in our running game right now. It's that bad. You're looking at a 1.3 average for Eckler, 2.7 for Kelly, and we're activating 2 running backs a game. It doesn't really make sense. So I would have really liked to have seen Xander get that opportunity. Hey, see if we have a power back on this roster, because we've been lacking that for quite a while, and it'd be pretty cool to see some old smash mouth football. That's kind of my lost opportunity there. We waived him this week. He's gone. So I don't know if we're ever going to see him in a Charger uniform again. A 2-week activation was weird. Kind of supported my theory that he was just there spying on the AFC North for our Ravens game. Tongue-in-cheek joke. But I don't know. Other than that...
Hey, Steven Anderson had 2 steps, Carl. At least he's in there.
Hey, just let's just keep working on all Kyle's bad takes. But
I was pumped to see Steve-O back.
Yeah, man. Yeah. And hopefully we get a
Steve-O.
little more action this time. Anyway, your biggest disappointment on the offensive side of the ball this game?
The first one that comes to mind is just like different week, same thing from Quentin Johnson. That drop was just the same as the one last week, and I'll say that the weather was not great, but like if that's the one thing that like would have ruined his week last week, like if he had gone on social media and seen the shit that had been thrown at him after that, it's amazing he suited up and played. But then to do it again, it's like throw your phone the fuck away, all of your computers, everything. You like it just hurts. It really hurts. They showed that graphic of all the receivers taken after him in the draft last year, and it's just like paddocks between him and Michael Wilson and like Nakua at the Rams as well. That's just sort of freak show stuff, but it's really hard. I think I asked that sort of question about the offensive philosophy sort of loaded because I thought that the opening script, something that Kellen's actually done pretty well with. I think he's lacked in the adjustments, but opening the script after going out 3 and out in the first possession, he runs on all 3 downs before punting again in the second, and we were sort of starting to get some stops on defense, and that's where it was just like we cannot go into like through another week of just not playing complementary football. So I was pretty disappointed on those fronts. The drops are the drops, the run game's the run game. I agree with you, Al. I'm up about the pass protection, but for me, it was just maybe the like offensive sort of philosophy and the mindset going into the game, needing to know that we had to make the running game work in order to, win things like time of possession, which we lost. We went Dutch with New England and split the same amount of first downs with 13 each, and we didn't even like generate as many offensive yards as they did. So it's mind-boggling, but it's disappointing that it's a lot of the same sort of things coming up that are contributing to our falters, if you will.
Andy, did you see what QJ's over-under was for receiving yards? It's the most disrespectful thing I have ever seen. It was insane.
Is it like, are we talking like 19 or something?
Right around. One site had it at 16.5, another had it at 18.5, and 2.5 catches for a number 2 wide receiver in a Justin Herbert-led offense. Can you guys believe that?
Carl's not getting commission from DraftKings or something like that, is he? Do you need to give a shout out to a sponsor, Carl?
FanDuel.
I didn't mention a name.
$50 back when you
This is
sign
your
up and
podcast.
mention a family member. Use the.
Until-
even
Sign up with the promo code Kyle D at
I
Kyle
don't
D.
have a pro. Hey, they do sponsor BFTB, but I am on TDU right now. So
Yeah.
and I don't have a promo code.
Can you do fake ad reads on shows? Like just chuck in the code word TDU for like $50 back on your first bet.
I mean, we could just start doing it to practice, and then we send it out to the companies.
That's
I think
right.
That's how you
Hey,
start,
we're pretty
right?
good at this. We're pretty good.
Yeah.
Listen to us. Yeah. I can read.
So that I
that's
thought that
pretty
was
disgraceful.
alarming.
But what does that say about the outside? Like we have the perspective inside that Herbert has his guys and he has clear trust issues with the rest of his core. What does that say about the outside perspective looking in, saying this guy does not want to? Well, first of all, it'll be like 2.5 receptions on maybe 8 targets if they're really trying to stick a knife in, and he's not going to throw it. Like he's not going to throw it to him. He's not going to throw it to him 5 times. Well, mud's on your face. That was an easy $8 to achieve more. Plus 1,200 to achieve the 3 receptions. So, joke's on you. Yeah. Moving right along. Anything further we want to talk about on offense? We don't want to sort of beat it up too much. Let's kind of ride out of this with still enjoying.
I'll point out one thing. I was disappointed to see kind of the lack of Herbert's legs as a factor in the game, especially when he's been doing a lot more of that the last few weeks. He had -5 yards rushing. He only scrambled once. And I thought in this game, particularly with how well held Keenan was by Jonathan Jones and JC Jackson and Miles Bryant. I thought they played Keenan pretty well.
Yeah,
I thought,
agreed.
Once the drop started happening, especially in that second half when it's, got to have it, we can't move the ball. I'm surprised they didn't either have more design quarterback run or Herbert just saying, nah, I've got to take off and do something with my legs. So, I know. That's just maybe wrapping up the discussion of the offense.
There was a moment, I forget at what stage of the game, but Herbert sort of scrambled out of what seemed like a pretty clean pocket out to the right and ended up throwing the ball half out of bounds.
Yes.
He just sort of couldn't adjust, and I think it was Josh Uche who came up and made that play from the outside linebacker position. But yeah, like Uche played pretty well. They had guys kind of containing that edge and not really allowing, when Herbert did boot out, he was pressured north and south rather than just out laterally out wide. So maybe that sort of contributed to it, but it's also recognizing that it's either on or you've just got to throw it away and not run yourself the risk of an 8-yard sack. But
he also had that really rough read too, Andy, where he had a quarterback read, and we've seen him be in that situation so many times and give the ball to the running back. When we looking at it, we're like, dude, you've got it wide open on that outside. If you hang on to it. In this game, he finally hung on to it, but the defender was right there. Like the edge didn't bite on anything, and it was rough. So hopefully he can get some of those.
Talking about the one where Austin was the read up the middle and had space. Like
I think so, yeah.
Could have pushed for a team long for the day, but he kind of hung on to it, went out left and got tackled. So
well in the backfield.
Yeah, cool. I just want to give a quick shout out to the special teams unit we spoke about, and before we move on to the Broncos preview, I was just decided that we're not going to do the Yeah Nah awards, but I'm going to do mine, and he can put his in the bin because it's just a copy of mine from last week. Yeah, I've got the nah, yeah, and I think it's not particularly good weather for having a game where you're relying on kicking of the pigskin. Yeah, the boys. J.K. Scott, heck yeah, sensational with a heavy workload. 8 punts, net yardage of 43.4, 7 of those punts inside the 20, 0 return yards. Cameron Dicker nails 2 from 38 in the wet, scored all of our points. And a bit of a fun fact for you fellas, there was over a minute's worth of hang time in the game. So over the 15 punts, they went at around 4.5 seconds a clip. So I busted out the calculator this afternoon after I got home from work, and I went, that's close to 70 seconds of the ball being in the air off a foot with a live ball. So, all right.
Good viewing.
We had a real game of footy this week, didn't we?
Yeah. A lot of footy.
That's not bad from you. Rare hit
Love
from Kyle. Rare hit.
We might have him back now.
It's funnier than Jack anyway.
Miles. Love you, Jack.
It's good to know that you're listening as well, Jack. We were surprised. All right, moving on to week 14, Broncos preview. It was good to see, guys. It was good to see Brandon Staley, although his hat was like remarkably low and he had like a Darth kind of... He had a Belichick hoodie thing going on. You could not see his eyes for the entirety of the press conference. But then he's smiling and he rocks back and he's having a laugh and he's enjoying it. It was just good to see him not losing the plot. And people will, like you said at the start, Al, with the psychology of how you view these results. You either enjoy the win for it being a win and for putting us in a state of, hey, maybe the season's not completely dead just yet. Or you're like, God damn, we won and it just means we're going to get a worse draft pick and this guy's going to keep coaching us for another week. Well, you can get as dirty at that and the stuff that isn't happening as much as you like, but it is nice to see a guy that's giving it his all, enjoying himself and feeling himself for a moment. So that's just about it. I don't think there were any injuries out of the game, none that I can recall vividly. Obviously, no injury report has been released yet, coming forward to next week. So, Kyle, what did you think of the Broncos game against the Houston Texans? What went down there?
So it was interesting game. Broncos had a tough time early on. They progressively got better on offense in the first half, but they started pretty darn rough. 3 and out, and then just a 4-play series after that. But they slowly were kind of gaining more yardage and then finally kicked in a field goal at the end of the half. But the Texans really gave it to them early on. They kicked a field goal on their second possession, followed it up with a touchdown after that, a 10-play, 78-yard drive. And then through the second half, Denver was down by 2 possessions, entered the half 3-13, and it really became a game of shot plays for them. They couldn't sustain a drive. They only had 2 drives that went more than 5 plays. But they did have a couple explosives. Cortland had one. Jerry Jeudy had one. I don't know if there was another one that I'm missing. But Russell did move the ball downfield a little bit, but when push came to shove, they had 3 opportunities to, take the lead down by less than 7 points on 3 different particular drives. And each time Russell Wilson threw an interception. So it was a rough game for them. Very much reliant on those explosives. And by the end of the game, they only had 2 drives throughout the whole game that went more than 5 plays. So Texans look good. Texans look like the real deal.
Yeah,
Our
dude.
boy, Desmond King got in there and just snuck into the top 5 in their PFF scores. So,
And surely that was a fumble return for a touchdown, Carl. Put your whistle away, official.
So not only did they take away the touchdown, they took away the stat altogether. They marked him down as having 4 catches on 4 targets allowed, or 4 catches allowed on 4 targets. They didn't give him a PBU. They didn't give him anything for that. No credit. So
Yeah, well, it was called forward progress, wasn't it? So the catch still stands. It's just like no yards after contact, I guess. Right?
Oh, that's what the call was. Sorry, I was speeding through the
It was
play. I didn't watch the game
complete, but it was forward progress. I was like, his legs are still churning, man.
That is
Desmond-
absolutely
yeah.
insane.
And poor Gene Steratore, twice in 2 games, they shoot to Steratore, and he's saying, I think that was a wrong decision. It happened in our game as well with the tipped ball at the line, where Steratore is like, yep, that's the right decision. They've picked up the flag. That's not pass interference. But lo and behold, it's 1st and 10, and they've kept it. Oh, man. Don't know what the answer is. Don't want to be one of those fans who only points out when decisions go in your team's favor, but that's all that's happening at the moment with the Chargers. So.
True.
So yeah, Broncos, the interesting thing is, and now Al, we're going to bounce this back to you, and I'm sure you're going to build on this, but their strength in the game was being able to get explosives, which has been our weakness. That there is a chance they do have the ability with how Peyton likes to call plays to move the ball downfield, something that Lombardi for some reason didn't take with him when he came here. But they definitely were making that. Had some instances where they made that work. Cortland and Jeudy are guys that can get behind a defense. Cortland's not the fastest, but he's a decent enough route runner. He caught that long touchdown pass in double coverage. But is what it is. Al, what do you think are some of the ways that the Chargers can kind of shut that attack down, and how you think we face this Broncos team?
It's going to be difficult. They have enough strengths that you definitely need to come ready to play. And I think the fact that they were on a 5-game win streak before this game says that they're well coached. They haven't given up internally. Maybe some of that is about Russell Wilson's, positive mindset and his bravado. He's kind of this middling quarterback where I feel like he makes more errors than he used to. Things like not feeling the pressure around him or not being able to escape that pressure. But like you said, Carl, they have some weapons like a Marvin Mims or a Cortland Sutton, who's having a good year with 650 yards and 9 touchdowns. That on the outside, Dean Leonard versus Cortland Sutton, I'm a little worried about how that will manifest. It almost resulted in more yardage than was given up this week against the Pats. Devontae Parker had that near catch on the sideline where one foot was in bounds and the other wasn't. I think there's a risk there. But I also think on the ground they present a pretty dangerous team, because I feel like Russ is rushing the ball better this year than last. Javonte Williams and this new rookie Jaleel McLaughlin from Youngstown State, undrafted free agent, 5'9" guy. He's fast, and he's the type of running back that the Chargers struggle with, where he can hit the outside, and he's having 5.7 yards a pop. So, yeah, there's a lot of guys to look out for on at least the offensive side of the ball. On the defense, they're this weird story of kind of incremental improvement. because they were breaking records for poor performance early in the year. Miami scored 70 points against Vance Joseph's defense, which is characterized by a lot of different styles of coverage and exotic blitzes and the type of scheme that maybe can take a while to acclimate to and communicate properly. But it seems like they're understanding that now. And on third down, they're the fourth best team in the NFL, allowing conversions on only, 35% of third down attempts. So I don't think they've got a lot of stars. I mean, Patrick Surtain is the obvious one. You always need to look out for him. Keenan, if he's in the slot, maybe he doesn't get Surtain, but he's going to be that one guy you've got to be aware of at all times, is Justin Herbert. And Zach Allen's been pretty good as a signing, I think, from the Arizona Cardinals. So enough strengths that the Chargers will be threatened. The question is how they respond to it. Andy, how about you on kind of the weaknesses of this Broncos team? How do you think we can exploit the Denver Broncos this week?
Yeah, for mine, I think the big opportunity is it comes out of I feel like there's a real imbalance between the Broncos pass rush and their coverage unit. Like you've mentioned Pat Surtain and stuff, but historically, yeah, he's a superstar player. He's having a down year though. Like let's be honest. He's still capable of these things, but he's having a down year. Justin Simmons sort of falls into that category as well. I feel like they're pretty thin at corner. They're not apart from Zach Allen, they're not generating a lot of pressure up the middle. Getting a bit of work out of Jonathan Cooper and Nick Bonito on the edges. So I'm hoping that we see the pass protection stick up a little bit more and maybe the passing game. I think as far as our run defense and their run defense go, like they're really going to test our run defense. And I just don't know if our run game's going to trouble theirs. So I'd like to really just see Herbert be hitting a lot of completions back at SoFi, back under the roof. Let's stick these catches. That's the biggest I can see is I'll just move straight into what I think the key to victory is, because it rolls on from that rather. If we come out firing early on offense, sort of like how the Texans sort of threatened and then ended up doing, we're putting a less physically gifted 35-year-old Russell Wilson under a heck more pressure. Yeah, like you said, Kyle, unable to sort of sustain those drives, tends to cook himself. He can't evade the pressure as much as he used to. He can still throw a beautiful, beautiful rainbow. Don't get me wrong, but it's a lot of like eggs in the basket to just be relying on a couple of plays, which the Chargers are sort of prone to be giving up. My thoughts are hit them hard early. Al, you and I were watching the Broncos Texans game condensed after the Chargers game on Monday, and we just got to come out and play smash mouth football straight up, get the pressure on their offense early, just sort of let's see how Kellen Moore can kind of balance the offense when the run game shits itself, I guess. Kyle, what do you reckon, man? How are we going to win this game? What do we got to do?
I just had a thought. Has anyone heard on? And this is terrible for me to ask this now, but whether or not, because Joshua Palmer would be outside of his IR window now. Has anyone
no
seen
timeline, said Brandon Staley on Monday morning. No timeline. So I think Buffalo is the best case scenario. That's my interpretation.
It would be great to have him back. This is going to be an interesting week because we were talking about their defensive backs. Their highest rated player right now, according to PFF, is actually their slot cornerback, Jaquan McMillian. And he's a player that, by the looks of it, and this is not me scouting him a bunch. This is just reading his stat line, which is terrible of me. But he's only missing 9.1% of his tackles. And for what I would do to have that in our star position right now, like it's terrible things. Like that's exactly what defense like ours needs, and one like Joseph's that often mixes up some crazy blitzes and is kind of, I don't think he runs a super similar defense to Staley, other than he gets creative with his blitzes and gets a little. He from what I've looked up and read, he really likes to blitz do a double blitz on the A gap, which for us is going to be an issue because that's
it is.
clap. That's Clapp. Yep. That's Zion. That's Jamari, who have all been kind of struggling this year. So the adjustment to look, the two things I'm going to be looking for are, can we break out and have a decent running game? But I'm not really anticipating it because it seems like they do a pretty darn decent job at bottling that up. And then B, can Clapp make the right coverage adjustments, or can Herbert make the right calls at the line to get that ball out quick when that blitz comes? Because that is an area that both Herbert and Clapp, I'm putting it on Herbert too, have struggled on this year.
Has to be.
And that's going to, I really think, guys, that could be the make or break of this game, is whether or not they're able to contain those creative blitzes that Vance Joseph likes to run.
Yep. What else is going to be really important just on that note is Austin Eckler and his safe hands. Because a lot of the time he's the hot out. And if that dump off needs to happen, Eckler needs to make those catches. He's dropping sodas. It seems like half the time Herbert's throwing bars of soap to Quentin Johnson and Austin Eckler. You're just sort of like, and Parham last week. Like, that's stunk. But I agree with you, man. That's what we got to do. Al, anything further? What is your result prediction? How's this going?
Yeah. I mean, I agree.
Al, just sorry, listeners. Al's in run the table mode. So he's 6-0 from here out, or 5-0 from here out is like well within Al's reach.
Yeah, I'm hopeful, if nothing else. We've got to stay out of these third and longs. I think the team's in so much trouble. And I don't mean the team needs to run the ball efficiently. I'm happy to manufacture a run game through some of the screens that we saw. You know, you feign one way and throw a screen to the opposite side to Austin Eckler or Quentin Johnston. Something to get you out of these positions where they can send those blitzes that you've been talking about, Kyle. Or, you know, where they can just make things difficult for this offense that has just generally struggled in third and long with Mike Williams and Josh Palmer out of the team. So I think that's really the recipe on offense. On defense, I think they've got a Waldo on their offensive line. It's Mike McGlinchey in pass protection. And that. Khalil Mack has a real chance to get this guy. I mean, he's given up 42 pressures and 5 sacks. And the next worst from one of his 4 linemen is 19 pressures allowed. So he's given 23 more pressures up than any other Broncos offensive lineman. So Mack's got to be opposite McGlinchey. And Russell Wilson melts down under pressure, guys. His grade under pressure was 29 against Houston. He's got the 5th highest pressure to sack ratio in the NFL. And do you know that puts him in the company of quarterbacks like Sam Howell, Desmond Ridder, Bryce Young, Zach Wilson. So he plays like a rookie quarterback when you get pressure on the guy. He drops the ball, he fumbles, he falls over. No amount of positivity will exactly. Yeah. So they're the kind of keys. I'm torn on this one, man, because it's heart, mind. You know, Peyton, who's going to want to show the world against the team that he was kind of not so subtly advocating to be signed to. I'm going to go one more week of being positive, and the Chargers win this game 27-24 at home. Okay. Keep the season alive for one more week. I'm not saying anything more than that. It's 1 week at a time. Chargers win and move the ledger to 6-7. Kyle?
I really don't want to do this. This is my least favorite part, man, of hopping on here with you guys and of when I'm writing with BTFB or BFTB right now. But I'm concerned about when I look at their defensive backs. I wonder where do we have a mismatch? And I look at, McMillian lining up on Allen. It's probably there. He's, like I was saying before, more of a run defender. He does give stuff up, but I fully believe they're going to be bracketing Allen and finding ways to shut him out. So then who can win a one-on-one? And we're going to have Surtain matched up against Quentin Johnston, probably. So this might be one of those games where we're going to be looking at a guy that just got signed off the practice squad or somebody else's practice squad to be the game ball of the day, to step up and make a big play. And did you guys see this week when that game ball was handed out, Quentin Johnston's face?
When it went to Erickson?
Erickson.
When Erickson got the game ball, Quentin Johnson was just everyone else was cheering, and Quentin Johnson was doing this.
Could have been you, dude. Could have been him.
Dude,
Catch the
One
football.
touchdown.
You've
Scored the
got to
one
feel the
touchdown.
guy. You got to feel for the guy. He probably thought it might have been coming his way because he matched. I think that was his highest totals for the year so far.
Oh,
5
stop
catches.
it. They were all chest catches, uncontested. And then you give him one chance to catch it in his hands, and Butterfingers spills the beans.
And
Hey, we
he
had
doesn't
40
only
minutes to
drop
bash
it.
this out earlier in the show, guys.
Sorry.
And he doesn't only drop it, he bops it up, which one of these days that's going to go to the defender.
Oh, it looks like
it's-
he's playing hot potato.
Every time it scares me. So anyway, boys, sorry. I'm worried that
Just wanted a score
We don't-
prediction.
we don't have enough of a extra.
This is an Eckler game, Kyle. This is an Eckler game, man. 100
can't
yards
call it
receiving.
I still have him in fantasy. I told Zaina to take him out of her lineup this week, and she did, and it worked. And I hate myself for it. But yeah, I'm gonna go 27-20.
Right on.
Broncos win.
Broncos.
It is tough. It is tough publishing.
You're not coming back.
Oh, sorry. You're going Broncos. God damn. I should have known from the start when you started that out going, I'm going to hate it. You're right. Doing predictions and writing little spiels. A quick shout out to TDU's buddy Dominic Mucciacito of the Rivers Lake Yacht Club. I've been stepping in for Jack and chucking a little prediction up there. I think I'm 2-1 on the season so far since I jumped in 3 weeks ago. So I love to chuck a little spiel. I'm going in a close one. Chargers 20, Broncos 17. Get the W. Just want to be positive for the rest of the year and enjoy my Monday nights watching football with my best buddy. That's how I want to see this. We'll live week by week and we'll just enjoy it, guys. I think that's all from us tonight. Hopefully it's another victory pod next week. We'll see Carl back on the show soon as he and his lovely wife are impending their baby girl. Oh, we're just going to lose another guy to being a father, and next it's me. So see you, Al. You're on your own, mate.
I can talk for an hour, you know it.
Yeah, that's right.
No one will listen, though. That's all right.
I get it once a week, off air. All right, guys. Thanks so much for tuning in. Let's go, Chargers. Get another win against the Broncos. Big divisional game. I guess we'll see you next time on the Thunder Down Under Chargers podcast. Thanks for joining.
Bye.
Herbert is being chased, thrown on the run, and it is caught.
Rivers backpedals, looking, firing. He's got Floyd turning. Got it. 6 10, 5, high step, touchdown!